Very good evening to one and all present here. Today, I, Vedant Sukreja, on behalf of entire team Jos Corpus, welcome you all in today's session on how to write a legal fiction and book reading session. So today, we have Advocate Saurabh Bagaria, advocate at Kolkata High Court with us. Hello, sir. I welcome you in today's event.
Good evening, Vedant. Thank you for having me here.
Yes, sir. So, sir, before starting, I would like to give a brief introduction of you to our audience. So, Mr. Bagaria completed his LL.B from University of Pune, post which he pursued his LL.M for University of Warwick, specializing in international economic laws. He was awarded the Southeast Asian Scholarship from the University of Warwick to pursue his LL.M course. After having completed his legal education, he started his legal practice in Calcutta. His areas of practice have been predominantly been tax and allied laws, including income tax, transfer pricing, GST, excise, customs, service tax, anti-dumping, to name a few. Over the years, he has been able to achieve a considerable market outreach with clients from both private as well as public sector. He is also a regular panelist in union budget discussion at various forums, and several cases argued by him have also been reported in leading legal reports throughout the country. He has also authored a legal fiction book, Money Gone, a thriller. So, also for our audience, we have a very special surprise that I will tell you in the end. So, over to you, sir.
Thank you, Vedant. Thank you for it's very humbling to get that introduction. But to start off with, in our in our profession, once a student of law, one of the basic things is that you become either it's innate in you or by way of a habit you develop a reading habit that is really essential. One of the basic traits you'll find in this community, lawyer community, is that everyone is an avid reader, and once you get into this habit of reading, there is a subdued or innate dream that someday you will also write a book. And because you are an avid reader, you have that thing in your mind that you can also write something. And we are drafting all the time legal documents, we are also authoring a lot of legal articles, but literature always finds a way in your heart. And it has always been my dream to write fiction novels. And somehow this year, last year actually, I started and I really pursued my dream of writing. It was a very tough task, I must tell you, but nonetheless, at the end of the tunnel, it's a happy, satisfied picture that you get. So to start off with, I would like to say everyone that writing is, it comes to you naturally, but you have to have certain nuances of writing a fictional novel, and especially a legal fiction. You can just Google it, or you can do a wide range of research. You'll have so many inputs coming in as to how to write a novel. But if you take the basics and the common denominator, there are some basic elements that has to be present while writing a legal fiction. Legal fiction is a genre basically of mystery and thriller, genre of novels. So there has to be that element of surprise. There has to be an element of investigation, and there has to be an element of the nuances of law and how these culminate into a novel, and your plots determine the novel's plotting. So to start off with, there must be an idea. You must have an idea as to what kind of novel one wants to write. There are a million possibilities. There's no end to one's idea, one's thinking, one's imagination. So one can pick up any element of that and make it into a novel, to expand the idea into a plot. It may be an idea you would want to deal with a murder mystery. You might want to deal with technology. You might want to deal with something with an environmental disaster. You might want to deal with something relating to political legal fiction. So there must be first of all, to start off with, a broad idea. Now, after you have this idea, you must sit down and try and give an outline to this idea. Once there is a idea, then you have to basically make it more concrete by giving it some outline, by determining what characters you want to put in. As a debut author, in my book, which has been recently launched, I did not venture by putting in a number of characters. So I tried to restrict myself with a limited 5 to 10 characters, because for a debut author, it may become difficult if you start off with authoring novels and books with around 20-25 characters. So you must also have that in mind as to how many characters you wish to incorporate in your book. And then once you have that idea, outline, and characters, you start off with writing your book. Now, to start off with, your first few chapters have to be really catchy. It has to build interest in the reader, because until unless the first chapters builds up the interest, the readers lose interest. So that you do not want it to happen. So you must really focus on building up the momentum in the very first 2 chapters. Now, once you have done that, very important aspect of writing a book or a novel, and which is not very different from what we do in our profession, is research. Now, you pick up any any plot, any story, any idea, though it's a fiction, but you must give a lot of time doing some considerable research on, the nitty-gritties and the details which you want to put in your book or a novel. And this research actually goes a long way in actually consolidating your novel. So the research part is very important. It also helps you, put the novel put your story in a proper perspective to the audience, to the readers. After you have put the research, you have got your research done, you have to start writing and put your points. While writing, you have to keep, both yourself as an author's point of view as well as the reader's point of view in mind. One of the very basic subjects of writing novels is a POV, which we call as a point of view. So point of view, you have to keep the reader's point of view also. You should not go on and divulge too much. You must put the readers, keep the readers in mind, and you must allow the readers to let their imagination go wild and try and contemplate and preempt how the story is evolving. And after that, then it's you have to really build up the main plot. That's the difficult part. When it comes a midway, your plotting has to be really good, and it has to build up into a story wherein you reach a climax and then the end. So that's about writing a legal fiction. It's basically writing any fictional novel would entail these small points to start and conclude. And in my opinion, once you really sit down and give some time, though it is a Herculean task, no doubt, but it is not an impossibility. So once you get into a habit of writing, things come very naturally and easily to you once you start writing. And that's about it, I think. So these are the very few basic points that one needs to keep in mind before venturing to start a novel. I think so. I've given you a brief outlook about how to write and what are the basic things to keep in mind while writing a novel. I would like to read a few excerpts from my book, Money Gone, which has just been launched. So let me give you a brief overview while reading 4 or 5 excerpts of various chapters. I'll start with chapter 1.
Okay, sir.
We need something concrete which will stand in the court of law, said Rakesh Bisht, the Commissioner of Income Tax, Kolkata. Seated next to him was his superintendent, Ajit Pandey, on board the flight to Bangkok. We waste our time getting after small timers. While the big fish always gets away, he said. Rakesh Bisht was an officer with an outstanding reputation. During his long career with the Indian Revenue Service, he had commanded great respect from everyone. This respect, however, was genuine in some and superficial in most. Many looked at his overzealous honesty contemptuously. Recovery of taxes which were legally due was his utmost concern. Corruption within his own department, bureaucracy, and access to high profile lawyers by shrewd businessmen never let him make inroads in any high profile cases. He had 2 years before he retired. Bish had made it his life's goal to catch someone big, someone involved in large scale money laundering, someone who, if caught and convicted, would send shock waves across the country. And that was the greatest problem of all. Conviction in a court of law requires more than just presumptions and suspicions. His latest assignment, and perhaps his last, was to gather evidence against Hardik Seth, the steel tycoon and real estate magnate of Eastern India. Bisht and his team had been keeping an eye on the affairs of the Seth for a long time. They had intelligence report that Seth's daughter's weddings at an exotic five-star resort just outside Bangkok was funded from resources not duly disclosed to the Indian tax authorities. Bisht had booked a lodge couple of kilometers away from the grand riverside Bangkok resort where the wedding was taking place. The IRS officers were pretty tight on their budget. Their plan was simple: to sit in the coffee shop all day long for 5 days and to make an estimate of the expenditure, number of guests, number of hotel rooms booked for the wedding, and take note of the celebrities and other dignitaries attending the said event. This they did for 5 days. Never before had the officers witnessed such pomp and glamour. Movie stars, sports stars, politicians, and business honkos were all present. Sitting in a corner, both Bisht and his deputy were meticulously taking notes. They noted all the names they recognized. They estimated the expenditure. They tried hard to figure out who was close to Seth. Bisht knew that their personal notes were of no or little importance. They were here to get information, credible information. At the end of all the festivities, on the sixth day, Bisht and his deputy entered the resort and headed straight to the reception. Bisht was upbeat and confident. Good morning. May we please see the hotel manager? He requested the receptionist. Good morning, sir. Mr. Mai will not be in the resort before noon. Is there anything I can help you with? The receptionist asked. No, thank you. We are from the Indian Revenue Service. We will wait for him, he replied. Bisht and Ajit took their favorite tables in the hotel coffee shop. They were prepared to wait for long. This they had done before in their own country. Their wait was, however, cut short within an hour. Good morning, gentlemen. I am Mai, the resort manager. How can I help you? Mai pulled up a chair. There weren't many people in the coffee shop that day. A big wedding event had just finished last night. Thank you for seeing us without such prior notice. I am Rakesh Bisht and this is Ajit Pandey. We are from the Indian Revenue Service. We are here to request you to give us the details of the Seth's wedding event. Bisht was direct. What kind of details? Inquired Mai. We want the entire guest list, the number of rooms booked, the number of times the banquet hall was used, etc. More importantly, the final bill and who paid for it and in which currency. Here is a permission from the Board of Taxes authorizing me to collect such information, said a beaming Bisht, taking out an envelope from his inside pocket of his blazer. Mr. Mai, without even looking at the letter, said, Mr. Bisht, you are not the first commissioner from India who has come to our resort to extract such information. I'm afraid I must disappoint you. But, said Bisht, there is no treaty for exchange of information between your country and mine. Mai cut him short. You may have the authority to ask, but I am not bound to give, Mai said as he pushed back his chair to leave. I hope you enjoy your resort. Now, if you will please excuse me as I have other things to attend. Mai turned round to leave. He barely took 2 steps when he remembered something. He too reached for an envelope from the inside pocket of his suit. Handing the same to Bisht, he said, "These are complimentary dinner coupons for your deputy and you. It's from Mr. Seth." I walked off without looking back. The watchers were being watched. Seth was shrewd enough not to initiate any conversation with the commissioner. He had his men watch Bisht. He had more credible information about them than they had about him. The young Ajit was nervously hopeful. He knew Senior would never make use of such coupons. His maiden foreign trip had turned out to be a disaster. The events unfolded so quickly that he was unable to properly understand them. They were there, they made good notes. The hotel could at least help us with some information, even if it was unofficial, he said to Bisht immaturely as they walked back to their lodge. Bisht was tight-lipped for the rest of their trip back home. The next chapter I'm reading. The court sits at 10:30. Saket is always in the port by 10 a.m. The port corridors are bubbling with activity at this hour. It would give any athletic mind an instant adrenaline rush. To an outsider, it may seem to be a very chaotic, but there is actually great organization in the chaos. The law clerks are busy arranging books and files. They make sure all the briefs and bags are put in the correct courtrooms well in advance. They check and make notes of cases in the daily court list meticulously. The busy lawyers' clerks are always busier. The other clerks are busy gossiping over morning tea. The lawyers are also chatting up over the morning tea. Tea is a ritual of sorts. You enter the courts and you will be served tea. There are people running with tea kettles all over the courts. Each one has his own jurisdiction fixed, and no one crosses the line lest there is a riot in court. There are frantic clients chasing the lawyers are chasing their clerks, who always seem to be busy with some other work and have ready made excuses if asked for an explanation. Some of these clerks acquire good legal acumen with years of service. There have been rare cases with clerks have also enrolled at the bar after pursuing law very late in life. Saket was quietly enjoying his morning tea amid the musical noise in the background. On the notice board beside where he was standing, there hung a notice calling for a walk-in interview for advocates interested in being impaneled with the Revenue's legal panel. The interview date was today evening at 5 p.m. Mr. Basu, a veteran at the bar, was passing by when he saw Saket in deep thought. Saket was so deep in thought that he saw no one. Mr. Basu stood beside Saket for a minute before he spoke. "Good morning, Saket. It's good to let your mind wander around." "Good morning, sir. I'm sorry, I did not see you," Saket responded promptly. Saket waved to a clerk to bring some more tea for both of them. Mr. Basu had noticed Saket look at the notice board a couple of times. The tea was served and finished soon thereafter. Before leaving, Mr. Basu said, "I would recommend you go for the interview. The money may not be great, but it will open the floodgates for you." Saket's mood was instantly lifted. He was pondering over the same issue. He was making infinite calculations in his mind. He was wondering whether it would be worth the plunge. The government panel is not known to be great paymaster, but Mr. Basu's advice cleared all his thoughts. He decided to go for the interview. Saket, like many others, was there for the interview a bit before time. There were more than expected number of candidates. Everyone would try and flock towards the ones coming out of the interview room to take stock of how tough the interview was. One advocate retorted when asked about her interview, "I think it's a waste of time. They are not even looking at your CV. They are just asking random questions. Out of the three, one person doesn't talk." Saket kept his composure. His turn came. He walked into the room in a gentlemanly manner. There were three people sitting. Two did most of the talking. One never talked. The panel seemed to like Saket's tax background. Towards the end, the third person spoke. He hadn't spoken a word all day. He asked Saket, "What are your views on black money and money laundering?" Saket was taken aback by this question. It was completely out of context of what was being discussed by the other two. But when the third person spoke, the two fell silent. It was clear who the boss was. The third person was none other than Mr. Rakesh Bisht, who was personally taking charge in building his team. Saket kept his composure and said, "It is a growing menace. The problem is very deep rooted. I am of a strong opinion that the investigative authorities need to work very closely with the lawyers. Very often we see the authorities chase the correct persons or entities, but without much credible evidence. The importance of gathering proper admissible evidence is one area which is often ignored in rush." Saket, thank you very much. You shall hear from us by tomorrow, said Bisht. Ajit Pandey, Bisht's deputy, was a silent man. He was an arduous worker. He had a demanding boss. His newfound love for law and the court cases kept his spirits high. He was also very good with computers. He was known as a tech wizard in his department. Not that he was any name to be reckoned with, but he knew his computers well. He also had some knowledge about the dark web. Yes, the dark web. Nobody knows anything about it, but ask any tech savvy person and one will find out that there exists a whole new world, an underground world. Some claim that a majority of the activities on the web happen on this dark web, far from the gaze of the media and the general public. All this is obviously hearsay. No one seems to know the real truth, but dark web does exist. That's the gospel truth. Ajit was up late night, literally burning his midnight oil. He was surfing the web, he was researching. He read numerous articles relating to money laundering. How do such schemes work? What were the governments around the world doing to handle such menace? How were the unscrupulous planning their dirty affairs? There were a myriad ways to do such things. There were more questions than answers. One could just sit up all night and be dazzled by the amount of information. The need of the hour was, however, to take what was useful to one. "Hello, Mr. Pandey." A message suddenly popped up on Ajit's screen. He was taken aback. Someone knew him on the dark web. This cannot be true. How could one identify him so accurately? Was he getting involved in something he should not? He kept staring at the message. His mind was no longer at ease. Should he reply or should he not? What should his response be like? Ajit mustered all his courage, folded his hands seeking the Almighty's blessings and replied, "Hi, who is this at the other end?" "A well-wisher." "Do you have a name?" asked Ajit. "You can call me Ellie." She said, "Who are you? What do you do?" Excuse me. "How do you know me?" Ajit was very curious. "I can't answer all your questions now," said Ellie. "We have to first develop some trust. I can assure you that we can be of use to each other," she said. "How do we develop trust?" asked Ajit. "I really don't know. Let us chat for a few times over and we shall know whether we can trust each other. You don't talk about a conversation with anyone, at least for now. I will do the same. I will see you online soon. Good night." Ellie was quick to leave. Ajit's screen went blank. It was rather late at night. He thought it would be better not to rush and to take it step by step. It was time for him to take a nap. Ajit was glued to his computers after work. He was on the dark web, waiting for the mysterious Ellie. He took necessary precautions like having a robust firewall and antivirus system in place, but there is always a risk when you are on the dark web. Here, everyone is supposed to be a computer wizard. "Hello, Ajit," popped a message. "Hello, Ellie. You know my first name too." Ajit replied. "I hope you don't mind that," Ellie messaged. "You look very tired," Ellie remarked. Ajit was taken aback. He frantically started looking for spy cameras in the room. After unsuccessfully searching for a while, he decided to take this forward. Why are you spying on me? He asked. Ha ha, you are so gullible. I bet you are new on the dark web. Ajit was a bit confused. He was not new on the dark web, but he had never communicated with anyone here. As such, one could say he was not a pro here. Why don't you tell me about yourself? He asked. I'm a cyber expert. Ellie was not completely honest. Where are you from? Asked Ajit. British Virgin Islands, Ellie replied. I don't even know where this place is, said Ajit. You should come here sometime, Ellie said. Ajit was slowly losing interest. It seemed to him that Ellie was some teenage girl trying to flirt with him. It's late here in India. I will see you later. Bye. Ajit logged off without waiting for a reply. The next day was a busy day at office. Bisht had called for a meeting to discuss the progress in the Sate's case. Bisht core team, including Saket, was present. BVI is a popular is very popular with all tax evaders. It is one of the most popular tax havens of the world. We do not have any information exchange treaty with BVI, said Saket. BVI? Asked Ajit inquisitively. British Virgin Islands, said Saket matter of factly. Lightning struck Ajit. He instantly remembered last night's chat with LA. How could he have missed it? He'd been working on Seth's case for long now. Reference to BVI had popped up many times. Was Ellie for real? Was she really from BVI? Was she trying to give him hints relating to his case? He felt very naive. At once, his mind went for a stroll. Ajit's body language became reserved and disinterested in the ongoing meeting. All his attention was focused on whether Ellie was real or not, and whether she could be of any use to him. Saket too noticed Ajit's weird reaction. His mind wandered too. Consequently, both of them missed crucial discussions in the meeting. It's decided then. We give them one last summon, and if Rohan does not respond, we arrest him. That will be all. Thank you. Bisht was at his usual upbeat best. But, sir, said Saket. No ifs and buts, said Bisht as he walked out of the office. Saket and Ajit were the only two persons left in the office. It was 4 p.m. Ajit was on the London Bridge. Kaur was careful enough to tell Ajit the difference between the London Bridge and Tower Bridge. Most of the first timers mistake the latter for the former. Ajit was quite surprised to know about it too. Here he was on the London Bridge to meet Ellie. There were so many different emotions and thoughts all bombarding him simultaneously. He was sure she would spot him. How did she look? Would she be friendly? Was this a trap? Was this worth the risk considering that this was not India? If something went wrong in London, would Bisht Sir be of any help? Was there any law on the dark web he needed to be aware of, especially when he was in London? Ajit wondered about all this as he stood in the corner overseeing the Thames. There were so many people there. All seemed to be racing. Their pace was admirable. Ajit just stood by, watching the men and the women pass by. It was 15 minutes past 4. Ajit didn't realize time had passed so fast. He'd expected Ellie to be on time. Now that he had checked his watch, he became impatient. Ellie was actually there before Ajit. She was standing right beside him. Ajit never realized. He mistook her for any other traveler taking pictures. Ellie had taken many pictures of Ajit too. She was of the same height as Ajit. She wore a denim jacket and carried an SLR. She wore a trendy hat. Ajit had glanced past her the moment he set foot on the bridge. The camera and the hat did the trick. He then stood in a corner, thinking and watching people. You look as impatient as you have always been online, she whispered. Ajit shuddered. He could not believe it. Ellie was standing next to him. He was speechless. Ellie was smart. She had been assessing Ajit for the last 15 minutes. She regarded him as a shy and of nervous kind. Ajit was still tongue-tied. Ellie instantly gave him a warm and affectionate hug. Come, walk with me. I will show you the famous Borough Market, she said. She had to handhold him to get him walking. It took him a while to be at ease. The walking did him good. He was calm now. He paused. I am sorry. I was just nervous. It's understandable, Ajit. You don't have to apologize. Your coming to London is God's gift to me, she said. The place was overcrowded at that time. The two of them sat in a corner cafe. It was a perfect place. Ellie found a quiet corner amidst the buzz. Both mingled well in the crowd. She ordered some light snacks, popular cheese, and drinks. Before you shoot 1,000 questions, let me begin by telling my story. I am a freelance international journalist. I have been working very closely on the issue of money laundering. My articles have been published in leading newspapers and magazines. My work has also been recognized by the Financial Action Task Force and the IMF. Of late, I have been closely watching the activities of a few here in London. They have been using BVI as a safe haven to launder money. The mention of BVI took Ajit back to the last chat when she had mentioned BVI, and later, when in the meeting with Bisht, he had naively asked about BVI. Ellie continued. The Seth family from India is closely associated with such activities in London and BVI. I have not yet been able to get any solid evidence to really publish an article. If my publication does not help authorities to take proper action, these guys will simply disappear. The transactions and bank accounts, etc., will also vanish overnight. My publication will just be of academic value. I really want to make a difference this time. I got to know that your boss and his team are working closely on the Seth family matter. This is the last bit that I'll be reading. Bisht was beginning to break. The London visit, though not completely unfruitful, didn't give him anything to make a move. He sat with his men trying to gauge the situation. Why is the room always so tense with Bisht around? Ajit asked himself. He was still in the London state of mind. There were others who had started questioning Bisht's efforts towards the Seth family. Nothing was coming out of it. There was a colossal waste of time and manpower in the opinion of a few members of his team. They could instead utilize the resources towards many other cases. This was precisely what Bish did not want. He was an experienced man nearing retirement. He knew the department's ways, the depth of its ability, and its shortcomings. The private players were always one step ahead, and they put in all that it takes to beat the system. Bisht was keen to sign off by making an indelible mark on the system. He was convinced about Seths. He needed to be more focused than ever. He was able to ruffle them the first time. It sent warning signs throughout the country. Recent trends, as reported to him by the banking supervisor, showed decreased trends in suspicious international banking activity. It was no doubt a positive sign, but these were just cosmetic changes. Bisht spent some time listening to his team members. Saket updated him in detail about the London visit. He was optimistic. He told Bisht what Rathore had said. He had advised him to keep a close watch on Seth's banking activities. Ajit did not have anything to add to what Saket said. The meeting continued for some time. It was time to take a break. Bisht looked at his mobile phone, which was kept on silent mode. There were three missed calls from Rathore. Bisht was taken aback. He didn't say anything. He ended the meeting and asked Ajit and Saket to wait outside. When alone, he called up Rathore. I'm sorry, I missed your call. I was in a team meeting, Bisht said. Oh, please don't apologize about it. I called to say something very important. Can you please call me on a secure line? Asked Rathore. I don't have that facility here. I will have to go to the ministry's office. Can I call you back in half an hour on the secure line? Bisht asked. Yes, that should be good, said Rathore. Bisht hung up thereafter. He called up the operator, asking him to tell his driver to get the car out instantly. He left his office in haste. Ajit and Saket, who were waiting outside, were taken aback. They chased Bisht to inquire if everything was okay. Bisht didn't disclose his conversation with Rathore. He directed them to take a short break and come back after an hour. Saket and Ajit were out of conversation. They just decided to take a short lunch break and headed to their cozy joint. He must have received a call from the highest levels, said Saket. I do not recall any such call which has made him run like this. It must be something really important, replied Ajit. We should finish lunch and get back soon, said Saket. Saket had this strange intuition. Why would Bisht ask them to come back? Saket was now hardly eating. He was waiting for Ajit to finish. He forced him to swallow his food and dragged him back to the office. The office was empty, it being lunchtime. Ajit complained that Saket was unnecessarily hurrying things up. The two sat outside Bisht's chamber and waited. They looked like schoolboys sitting outside principal's office. Ajit felt a bit irritated, while Saket was very eager to hear Bisht. Bisht came back before the end of lunchtime. They could see his tightened brows. Bisht wiped the sweat off his face as he passed by them. He signaled to them to follow him inside his cabin. The two followed without a word. Bisht was sweating profusely. He drank a glass of water before sitting. He then sat and poured himself another glass of water, which he quickly gulped down. He was breathing loudly. It took him a while before he was able to calm his nerves. Sir, are you all right? Asked Saket. I just had a word with Rathore on the secure line. Ajit, did you give Rathore some name to look into? He asked. Yes, sir. One Mr. Maduro, he said. Who is this Maduro? Bish said, his voice indicating his surprise at why he hadn't heard of the name before. Ajit was speechless. He looked at Saket. Saket immediately cooked up something and was about to speak in his defense when Bish started to speak again. Saket held back. He told me that you wanted to safeguard your source. Rathore has come up with some astonishing facts. These guys are really good. They are way ahead of us. How do we deal with this? Bisht paused and then mumbled, cryptocurrency? Bisht was crestfallen. Saket and Ajit didn't understand the thing. They actually did not hear a thing Bisht had said in his last sentence. Bisht sensed he was not clear enough looking at their faces. Rathore is of the opinion that Maduro has been assisting Rohan Seth in laundering money using the latest blockchain technology and investing in cryptocurrency. He has no hard evidence, but he says his source is reliable. He will get back once he has more on this. So Ayush, Vedant, these are some of the excerpts that I have read, and the rest will follow through once one reads the book.
Yes, sir. So, sir, with your permission, shall I proceed ahead with the questions our audience?
Yes, sure, Vedant, sure.
Yes, sir. We are receiving several questions from our audience. So, sir, my first question is, what is the central theme of your book, Money Gone?
Central theme?
Yes, sir.
The central theme is basically money laundering, and to add to it, the newest technology and the newest ways in which this business family is into money laundering, and how the taxman and the lawyers are grappling with the outdated infrastructure and mechanism to get hold of and try these guys out in the court of law.
Okay, sir. So, sir, my next question is how to frame chapters in a novel and how to structure it?
See, there are two ways to do this. One is, if you are you have to really visualize your entire plot during the start of the novel or when you proceed a bit further. And this, I think, so is a bit difficult. And the second part is, you just go on writing as you sit by your laptop or your computer, and then you start building your novel. But even when you do that, there has to be some basic flow, and you break the flow in the form of chapters. So basically there should be a flow in your plot, and when you have that basic idea which you have expanded into a plot, you must try and link those, and you can link those by various means, and chapterization is one of those.
So sir, my next question is how to make up or develop a mind to write a book.
See, making up a mind to write a book is basically something that comes from within. So, as I had originally started off, we being avid readers, you always have it in you that someday you will write a book. So I think for that, it only needs a determination and will to write something, and to, you take it as a project that once you start, you won't finish until it's, done. So I would, in my opinion, suggest everyone who's listening and who has a ambition of writing a book is to, just put in your efforts and get it done with. It's not a very, very, very tough thing. It's just that, we do not take out time to, put in considerable efforts from what we are doing usually in life. So take out time, do a bit of research, and write the book.
Okay, sir. So, sir, is publishing the books and novels easy in this competitive world?
No. Publishing is a total different ball game. As they say that writing a book, and then the tougher part comes in getting it published. So basically, publishing nowadays is divided into two broad categories. One is the traditional publishing, and one is self-publishing. So with the traditional publishing, you have the big names who are the traditional publishers. They take all the risks, but they have their own set of rules, and the waiting period is pretty long. Some of these big publishers, they don't even accept manuscripts directly. So you'll have to go through a literary agent, and finding a literary agent and getting his or her audience is also sometimes pretty difficult for at least a debut author. And but one can try one's luck, if I may say, to get hold and get the audience of these big publishers, because they, with their experience and outreach, can make a big difference. But if one wants to not wait that long and not follow up with traditional big publishers, then there is this thing called self-publishing. So self-publishing is something where there are good editors, teamwork, and they have got a phenomenal team, and they help you out in all possible manner. But the only difference is that you put in something and you take in a bit of a risk on your own. So that is the only basic difference. And the self-publishing has also changed a lot, and has encouraged new authors, debutant authors, to really come and write books and not wait for 6 months, 1 year, 2 years to try and get their books published. There have been cases where authors have spent a couple of years just trying to get their books published, but haven't been successful. So this self-publishing industry has changed it all. And if you are willing to take a bit of risk, then self-publishing is a good thing for at least novel authors, new authors, debutant authors. So one has to take a call between taking a risk and not taking a risk, and going for self-publishing or going for traditional publishing.
And so what is the procedure to get published a book?
See, getting published a book, for example, if I may give, if you going for a self-publishing, so you'll have to get your book, whatever your manuscript is, you have to get it edited. It is always advisable to first self-edit, and they get it edited by a professional editor. Then you have to get it typeset. You have to have a good team who can cover design. As they say, don't go by the book cover, but actually the book cover helps the book to sell. So you have to have a good cover designer. The publisher also helps you get the ISBN number. and then list your books on the online platform for sale. So once you have engaged and you are up with the publisher takes care of getting the book actually out in the market after going through these technical formalities of getting ISBN number, taking a call as to what will be the book size, book font, the page numbering, the layout, the typesetting. Those things the publisher or the self-publisher takes care of that.
Okay, sir. So my next question is, what are your suggestions while authoring a legal book or novel?
See, my suggestion would be from my experience in writing one novel that I have just written and that's just out, is to start off with, do not try and overdo. By that, what I mean is that for a start, at least, try and take a simpler jaw and try and have a limited number of words and not really expand your novel until and unless you have some kind of plot in your mind which can take a novel to more than 60-80,000 or even more than, not more than 1 lakh but around that lakh words. So until unless you really have an idea which you can expand that long, I would suggest try and keep it to try it, make it as a novella, a short novel. That would be better to start off with for debut novelists.
Yes, sir. So last but not the least, my last question for the day. Sir, any advantage of online publishing over hard copy publishing in today's modern time?
See, what happens is that nowadays, the publishing industry has changed a lot. So, even the publishing, whatever you want to publish, they have a print on demand publishing mechanism. So, for example, your publisher may just print a number of books to start off with, and then as the demand rises, he or she, the publisher, will publish the book on demand. So, publishing a hardbound or a online novel is not a big deal because with the advent of Kindle and ebooks, the book is available at the click of a button. And if you want a hard copy, for example, you can go on Amazon or Flipkart and just order a hardbound paperback, and that will be delivered to your doorsteps within a week. And if you if you are in talks with some stores, popular bookstores, they may also keep the paperback in their stores.
So, okay, sir, that was all for today. So I have an announcement. So as I announced in the beginning, that we will have a very special surprise for our audience, which is that the Just Corpus will be giving the book Money Gone, written by Saurabh sir, to one of our viewer. And for that, you are required to fill the feedback form, and we will pick one of the winners from that form, and we will gift him or her that book. So this was all for today. Thank you so much, sir, for joining, and thank you, a lovely audience, for joining.
Before going, I would just request that to the viewers, please take out some time and read this book, Money Gone. It's available on Amazon and Flipkart. It's available also as the ebook on Kindle, so it's just there at the click of a button. And you can follow me on Insta and Facebook page, my author page. I would request you to kindly read this book.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for giving a piece of time.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, audience.